Good morning. It's early. As Rob said, thanks, Rob, by the way, for that introduction. Yeah, thanks for not telling the other embarrassing stories. I'm Josh Allen. I'm a principal consultant with Theater Consultants Collaborative. We're based all over the place. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. We have offices in New York, Toronto, Los Angeles. And we design performance venues. So anything that ranges from performing arts centers to theaters, concert halls, amphitheaters, that is what we do. Now, I read a recent article in Time magazine that stated the attention span of humans is shorter than a goldfish. So I should start by telling you guys, I do have some wonderful ETC swag during this presentation this morning. I know it's early, so if anybody can tell me the attention span of a goldfish, raise your hand. Anybody? Yes? 3 seconds. No. Anybody else? Yes? You guys are guessing now. Yeah? What's that?
About 3 seconds.
3 seconds. Well, according to this article in Time magazine, the attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds, is what they're saying. And Microsoft found that in the year 2000, maybe that's the problem, Microsoft did part of this study. Microsoft found that in the year 2000, which is about the time we had the mobile revolution, how many of you have some sort of mobile device? The average attention span for a human dropped from 12 seconds to about 8 seconds, which is really about 1 second less than this goldfish here. So what that means is during this slide, I've lost most of you. So we're going to keep going here. Stay with me. Yes.
Isn't that also when they came out with Microsoft 2000 platform?
That may be.
That had something to do with it.
That may be. Great. So stay with me. We're going to have a fast-paced hour here. I'm going to be outlining history of electricity and lighting and how that's played a role in our industry throughout the years. Now, when Nick introduced Fred yesterday, he talked about innovating creativity. And the thing about innovation and creativity, especially at 8 a.m., is that it requires coffee. Rob mentioned I'm a coffee connoisseur. Countless studies have shown that in small doses, caffeine can be incredibly effective, providing our body with a boost of energy and alertness. It is proven to, among other things, provide enhanced motor and cognitive skills. I've had a little caffeine this morning, so if I'm rambling really quickly, you'll know why. The short-term memory boost and increased accuracy of reactions and the ability to focus attention. So let's start talking about coffee. You know, ETC said you can talk about anything you want, so I figured we'll at least fill part of the hour talking about this. As myth would have it, there was once an Ethiopian goat herder. No kidding. Where's Jen? I told Jen I'd mention goat herder in this. There was an Ethiopian goat herder, and his name was Kaldi, and he is known for his dancing goats. And what happened is, according to the myth, Kaldi's out and he's herding his goats, and he looks over and sees the herd, and they are eating these berries, these cherries off of this bush. And he sort of looks at them and realizes when they eat that, a few minutes later, they sort of get up on their hind legs and start doing this little dance. And that really was something that made him think about that. He took notice of that and thought about it and said, maybe I should take some of these cherries and find out what the deal is. So he grabs some of the cherries and takes them to a local monk. And the monk takes one look at them and said, these are worthless, and sort of throws them into a fire. And Kaldi's sort of disheartened until this wonderful aroma starts coming out of the fire. He realizes, maybe there's something to this. Maybe we can make something of it. And pulls the beans out of the fire, these charred pits of cherry, and decides, let's grind these up and throw them in some water and drink it. I don't know why he did that, but I'm happy that he did. So Kaldi was a guy that took notice of something, and he took action on it. He capitalized on happy mistakes, and he adapted to change, and he created a final product that many of us cannot live without. What I'm going to be talking about today primarily is electricity and power. And very much like the coffee that was just waiting to be discovered and for someone to make something of it, electricity has been waiting for for someone to find it, discover it, harness it, and do something with it that we can use. So this is the title here, Power Struggle. I'm going to give you a brief history. Now, the next section that I'll talk about has a lot of guys in wigs. So I promised my wife that I would kind of quickly try to move through that and not spend too much time on the wigs. So electricity was something we really did not understand until the 17th and 18th centuries. And then finally in the 19th century, we feeble humans understood it enough to put it to work for us. We'll start with this guy. Actually, before we do that, I had this little bit where I needed a balloon, and I was going to find somebody to rub it on their hair and show them this example of static electricity. Is there anyone that would volunteer to do that? You, sir. Come up afterwards, you get some swag. I don't have the balloon, but we're going to travel back to... yeah. Maybe there's an ETC swag balloon in there. We're going to travel back in time to 600 BC really quickly. This guy, Thales, he studied static electricity. So the way Thales did this is he had a pet cat, and he had, and he had this chunk of amber, and he realized when his cat walked by the chunk of amber, the cat's hair stood up on end, and suddenly things like feathers and bits of cloth and things would stick to the cat's fur. So then we take a fast forward here to 1600 AD, 2200 years later, and we're still studying static electricity. This guy, William Gilbert, basically was Elizabeth I's personal physician, and he studied static electricity and coined the new Latin word electricus. So that's the first time we sort of heard that Latin word. In the Greek, it comes from the Greek electron, which actually means amber. This guy right here, Sir Thomas Browne, he was sort of a literary badass. He coined hundreds of words that we use today. He was the first to actually publish in his newly coined word, electricity, 4,100 words that this guy coined. He coined the word computer, gymnastic, exhaustion, you name it. I mean, this guy came up with stuff that was, prostate. This guy, I don't understand. But electricity is the first time this guy coined that word and it was used. We get into, now look at this guy. Look at that. That's not what I'm talking about with the hair. This guy with the balloon, this is Charles Dufay. He must have definitely loved the balloons. He noted the difference between conductors and insulators. So he was a chemist and a scientist and all-around big hair guy. And he started calling with the conductors and insulators, he started calling them electrics and non-electrics. And this is what we now call positive and negative charges. So this guy was sort of furthering, the advancement of discovery in the electrical world. If I can get the slide to advance. Great. We all know this fellow. Who's this? Oh, his name's there. Okay. Benjamin Franklin actually furthered Dufay's discoveries. He invented the lightning rod. As a consultant dealing with theaters that have these large fly towers, we know well what lightning rods are. We spend time with all of our engineers, electrical engineers, to make sure that the buildings that we design are properly grounded for lightning strike. And so we can thank Benjamin Franklin for that. He was a daredevil kite flyer.
You never flew the kites. You always had an assistant.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. That's probably because he didn't want to take his life into his own hands, touch the key. I did actually learn, some interesting things about the insulators that he used between the key and his thumb, or that he was using. So if you want to talk to me more about that, we can have a discussion about flying kites with keys on them. He also supported the wave theory of light, which was developed by Christian Huygens, which was later furthered by Augustin Jean Fresnel. And yes, it's that Fresnel. So there's a name that we recognize in the theater already here. Wave theory, we can talk about that in a class for another day. If you're interested, come and talk to me. This fellow, Thomas Edison. So we're now in the 1800s. Say that again? What's that? All right, okay. Edison held nearly 1,100 patents in the US, and he held many more in Europe. He was credited with inventing motion pictures and the phonograph, the microphone, things that we use in the theater every day. So we can boo him, but he did come up with a number of things that we do use quite often. He was also held the American patent for the light bulb or the electric lamp. Now notice there's an asterisk there. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. A lot of people think, of course, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. That's debatable, right? We'll talk about that. Oh, look at this. That's Edison there with his original 4-source lamp. If you count the filaments there, I couldn't resist putting this on here. I thought, this is so tiny. If we just take this thing and we shove it into a lighting fixture with maybe an unpolished steel reflector or something, you get a good stage light out of it. So that brings us to the War of the Currents. The War of the Currents, AC versus DC. On your left there, we've got Tesla, we have George Westinghouse in the middle, and we've got Thomas Edison there on the right, rocking it on the electric guitar. So who can answer for me? Raise of hands. What does AC stand for? Oh, everybody yelled. I don't have that much swag. What one person, raise your hand. What does DC stand for?
Direct current.
Oh, okay, you'll get it. Here you go, catch this. I'll get you later. So before we get into this war, because it's early, I need to take a sip of water, so we'll do a little pick-me-up. I decided when I got off the plane to go out on the streets of Madison and do a little street interviews to find out what people thought about electricity, AC, DC, those sort of things. So we're going to show you that video right now. I say electricity, you say?
Lights.
Okay. I say electricity, you say?
Power.
I say electricity, you say?
Light bulb.
Okay. I say it's electric, you say?
Let's dance.
I say it's electric.
I got nothing. Nothing.
I say electricity.
Light bulbs.
Okay, safe answer. How about Thomas Edison?
Not.
I say it's electric. You say. I'm really trying to lead you with that one. I say electricity. You say.
It's not political, right?
Let's ask this one. AC/DC.
Not a very good band.
Never got into heavy metal stuff.
No.
Yeah, see? More jobs in Madison. We're not that broken a state economically, though you might think that. We're not.
Wait, we're not getting political here. Okay, here's a question. Do you know any songs about electricity, lighting, anything like that?
Not really, except for the electric slide, but that's not electricity. That's.
So when I say it's electric, you say?
I don't know. I'm a little young for that. Light bulb again. Sorry.
okay.
I'm recycling my
All right.
answers.
Or I say electricity, you say?
Wasted.
Not.
Okay, how about this one? I say it's electric, and you say?
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, like Metallica, Give Me Fuel, Fuel. And,
Fuel?
Yeah.
Can you hum a bar? I'm trying to think that one.
No, I can't. I have Metallica on my phone, though.
Yeah? On your phone?
Yeah, we could play it.
You could play it?
Yeah.
We could do that.
Yeah.
It's electric.
Disco.
I say electricity, you say.
Thomas Edison.
Yeah, Thomas Edison. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, what'd she say?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. No, that makes
always
sense.
a smart way
No,
to go.
I'm thinking-
Always a smart way to go. Do a little tune and go, it's electric.
Boogie woogie woogie doo.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
Good one.
Are we filming this now?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, all good.
Do this with me. Just one time.
You do that.
I'll do it one time.
No, have a good time, John Travolta. Yeah, that's good.
I'm down with ETC.
Down with ETC. Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, that's right.
Dun, 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 dun. It's electric.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Great. Thanks so much.
Keep making pretty lights, you guys.
So that was a lot of fun. It was really interesting to see the folks that would, totally avoid us knowing that we had a camera on the street and cross the street and walk the other way. So the war of the currents here. Thomas Edison developed this delivery system for power and promoted a system of DC. Now, what this meant was that any of the power distribution locations had to be about within 1 mile of the user. So it was great in a city where you had a lot of folks in one place, but when you get out into rural areas, you would lose, there would be a voltage drop situation, and you just couldn't get the power out there. So George Westinghouse comes along, and George is promoting AC power with the help of Nikola Tesla. They had put their various patents and things together and come up with this AC power delivery system. Now, Westinghouse, because AC did not have some of the voltage drop issues, they were able to go much further away from the point of distribution to the actual end user. Edison did not like this at all. Of course, Edison really wanted DC to be the standard. And so he was doing just about anything that he could to have, to speak out against what Westinghouse was doing. He went as far as saying, just as certain as death, Westinghouse will kill a customer within 6 months after he puts in a system of any size. He has got a new thing, and it will require a great deal of experimenting to get it working properly. That's a pretty strong, practically, it's a very strong statement here. Edison even went as far as publicly electrocuting animals with AC current. Where was PETA during this? Maybe that's where they started up. Poor Fido, the sacrifices that we've made during developing power. Edison also developed the first electric chair, but of course it wasn't with DC, it was with AC power, and that was sort of snubbing his nose at Westinghouse to be able to say, hey, look, here's an electric AC device. It's killing people. Let's not put AC power out there for the general public to use. So Westinghouse developed and promoted an AC power delivery system with the help of Tesla. In 1893, Westinghouse was awarded this contract to build a hydroelectric dam at Niagara Falls. This was completed in 1896, and basically this sort of squashed Edison's hopes of DC power delivery systems. So after this, the US decided to adopt the standard of 120 volts at 60 hertz. Europe then adopted 220 to 240 volts at 50 hertz. Wait a minute. Where's David? What is this? Apparently, David Linscomb has hacked my keynote here, but I guess don't forget ETC also makes a whole lot more than lighting. They also manufacture a full line of professional mechanized stage rigging solutions. If you have any rigging questions, make sure you go see one of the fine folks at ETC about rigging.
Yeah, they all use electricity.
They do. You are correct, sir. Thanks a lot, David. So, it's electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie. The electric lamp, the electric light bulb. I was at Light Fair back in May, and it's amazing how far they're coming with LED lamps, LED bulbs that actually look like an incandescent lamp like this. Who has used one of these? Wow, lots of hands going up. Great. So on the left there, we've got a strong carbon arc Super Trooper. On the right, there's a GE World War II searchlight. These both were an arc source lamp, thanks to a guy named Sir Humphrey Davy, who in 1807 created the first arc lamp and presented that in London. So 1807, the arc lamp came around. When's the last time one of you guys used, anybody still using, back there, look at this. So let's think about that for a minute, 208 years later. It's, unbelievable. So this guy, Sir Joseph Swan, he was an Englishman. He furthered Dufay's discoveries. But where Dufay grew hair on top of his head, Swan grew it underneath his chin. He was the original hipster. Swan is credited with inventing the first incandescent light bulb, much to Thomas Edison's chagrin. In the theater, there was a fellow in the 1870s named Richard D'Oyley Carte. He was a successful theater business manager and a presenter. And in 1881, he built the new Savoy Theater in London. This was the first public building entirely lit with electric light, and he used Swan's light bulbs in this building. Now, this building set the new standard for technology, decor, comfort, not to mention being lit by electric lights. This is a guy that, as a consultant, we would love as a client, saying, hey, let's put some new stuff in. Let's think outside of the box a little bit here. But the truth is, there were a lot of fires that were sort of sweeping through the theaters in Europe and killing a lot of people because of the gas lamps. So the coming about of electric lamp and electric power was a great thing, especially for the theater patrons. Patience was the first show that opened here. By the way, this was the home of Gilbert and Sullivan for a long time as well. Patience was the first show that opened here in 1881. They put in a generator to run the building. The generator was too small for the first 3 months. I guess they had some problems. They didn't hire a consultant, so there was no one providing loading reports to the electrical engineer. But the generator was too small, and we call that a punch list. 3 months later, they were able to run the entire space on electric lights. But for those first few months, it was only the front of house, and they used gas lights on stage. There were 824 Swan lamps that were used on stage, and another 334 lamps were used out in the house. So this is a big deal. This guy, D'Oyley, really wanted people to enjoy the show. He was sort of like Disney in that way. He wanted them to experience everything. He said, the greatest drawbacks to the enjoyment of theatrical performances are undoubtedly the foul air and the heat which pervade all theaters. As everyone knows, each gas burner consumes as much oxygen as many people and causes great heat beside. The incandescent lamps consume no oxygen, and I love this last part, cause no perceptible heat. We know incandescent lamps do not get hot. By the way, I feel like I'm under tungsten today, so thank you.
The lamp, were they DC or AC? Because this is prior, obviously, to the great Edison.
Right.
Westinghouse.
I'm not sure that I know the answer to that, but we can find out the answer to that for you. So on the heels of this, Thomas Edison, not to be undone, designed the power distribution system for the Mahan Theater in Brno, Czech Republic. Hopefully I said that correctly. The thing about this theater is this theater was already being designed. And midstream, they said, stop the press, let's stop the design of this space, and we need to do some things differently. Hundreds of people had just been killed in Vienna and Prague in some fires, and they said, let's design this space with actual larger stairwells and exits and things like that to allow people to get out, things that we take for granted now. And then also they said, let's redo it with electric light. So Edison he designed the system himself. He put a generator about 300 meters from the building because it was so big and honking loud that you could hear it right inside, and the acousticians would not allow it. But he did not actually visit this building until 25 years later. So in the lighting world, as we're progressing into the turn of the century, thanks to the success of the Savoy in London, Broadway theaters owners were also jumping onto the bandwagon. Broadway was getting lit. In 1903, the Kliegel brothers installed 96 resistance dimmers at the Met. Fred talked yesterday about another installation at the Met, and an additional 20 dimmers for the house lights. In 1911, GE debuted the tungsten filament source. So Think about that. Tungsten's had a pretty good run, right? 1911, so we're talking 104 years ago. Advances in lighting at this point were really starting to take off. Electricity and lighting, everyone wanted it. It was electrifying. No pun intended. Broadway was called the Great White Way because if you look at these photos of it, you can see why. There's all of this beautiful white electric light amid the dark scape of the city. Things were heating up among competitors in the lighting industry as well. There were big producers of light bulbs, GE, Philips, Siemens, AEG. Philips had an IPO in 1912, and the rest was history. Who says you can't get rich making a light bulb? Oh, conspiracy alert. I really wanted a sound effect for that. Maybe we go back and do it. Can you guys give me one? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Excellent. So in 1924, something happened. And I'll show you this little excerpt from a documentary that was shot in 2010, and then we'll talk about it.
In the 1920s, light bulbs lasted 2,500 hours. Today, they last only 1,000 hours. What happened? A secret cartel was set up in 1924. Its goal, to reduce the lifespan of light bulbs to 1,000 hours.
All right, the great light bulb conspiracy, the untold story of planned obsolescence. What is planned obsolescence? It is the policy of deliberately limiting the life of a product in order to encourage the purchaser to replace it. God knows ETC does not do this. If you look at any of the sensor racks that have been in existence since they're out there, they're still kicking without problems. And can you believe we're almost at a quarter century for the Source 4? Only 2 more years, and we're at a quarter century there. As a matter of fact, I ran across a Vision desk a few weeks ago, still kicking it. So let's face it, at this point, it's not easy being a light bulb company. Market share was for the taking among the big companies. And the thing is, they were making these light bulbs that were too good. So they would sell a light bulb, it lasted 2,500 hours or more, and they just weren't burning out. So there'd be great sales in the first year, and then sales would drop off for the next 3 or 4 years, and then people would start buying a light bulb again. So they all got together. Here it is, Christmas time, December 23rd, 1924. This group of businessmen from all of these light bulb companies meet in Geneva. The Christmas lights are all over town, strung up. Everybody's out singing holiday songs. And there's a group, and I imagine them, I'm embellishing this a bit, but they're in this dark, smoky room, and they're coming together to form what is known as the Phoebus Cartel. Phoebus is Apollo, the god of sun and light. And this included all the biggies, Osram, Philips, GE. And their goal in forming this cartel was to take the lifespan of the light bulb from up there, you see between 1926 and 1934. 1926 is up there between 2,500 and 3,000 hours to get it down to where the standard for manufacturing practices kept the light bulbs at about 1,000 hours. They said to be able to do this would not only allow them to sell more light bulbs, which was a big goal, but they justified it by saying these are better quality, they'll burn brighter, blah, blah, blah. So in the theater, about this same time, there's an architect by the name of John Eberson. Now, John designed nearly 100 what we call atmospheric theaters and movie palaces in the United States. Unfortunately, many of them have long since been destroyed. These were beautiful, cavernous, ornate theaters. These are the kind of spaces that you walk into and immediately say, wow, that's unbelievable. They just don't build them like this anymore. About 1.5 years ago, I had the fortunate opportunity to be a part of the renovation for the performance lighting and architectural lighting systems for the Tampa Theater in Tampa, Florida. This is a project that's actually currently out to bid, and I'll never forget walking in for the first time. All of the details and the plaster work, just the ornate busts and the various bits of craftsmanship, the details that were just everywhere were unbelievable. The thing that really struck me the most, this is actually an Eberson drawing, the thing that struck me the most about this was not just the amount of time and effort he put into designing the detail of the room itself, But now he has the ability, because of electricity and electric lighting, to design lighting fixtures of various types that are going to take electric lamps. So, you know, these are fantastic stained glass urns, to simple wrought iron wall lamps and sconces, to heavy ornate pendants and delicately beaded fabric-covered lampshades. I love even the exit signs were just meticulously designed. You know, and Eberson had it all. This was all electric light that was going into these fixtures. It was really fun cataloging every single fixture in this space, you know, looking at what it needed for restoration purposes, and then taking those fixtures and paying attention to the history and making that conversion over to LED lighting at this point. Even there are dozens of busts. I mentioned these busts and statuettes embedding the walls. These are also backlit with A-lamps. There's these little troughs that go in behind them. And take a look at this. This is an original Frank Adam Electric and Major Equipment out of Chicago did the installation for the resistance dimmers in the space. They still use these today. They're still working today. It's just unbelievable. So there was no way we would go in and ever think about, let's tear these out. But at the same time, they wanted to be able to upgrade to current technologies. So we're actually working with some folks in ETC's applications engineering, whether they know that yet or not. It's on the drawing. We drew it, so they have to do it. They love to give tours in this theater, and when they do so, they'll come backstage. There's a thing every night where the stage manager will go and dim the lights down on the resistance dimmer, walk out, open the curtain, and then they'll start the show. Pretty typical of just about any theater in a lot of ways, but it's one person doing all of that. They wanted to be able to give those tours and have people see that. So what we're doing is we have some contact interfaces and some things that are allowing us to use this where it's actually going to trigger some paradigm presets on the back end. So under the hood, it's going to be modern, old on the surface. GDS by ETC, thanks Chris, by the way, for that intro, is also playing a major part in some of the renovations in the house lighting in this project. So it's our jobs as consultants to really honor the past while we are embracing the future. These are a few drawings, taking these beautiful historic spaces and working in them is one of my favorite things, as Rob mentioned. You'll notice in this drawing we actually used one of Eberson's elevations because who could draw it better than Eberson? So, electric lighting advancements are beginning to move now at a breakneck pace. We're in the 1900s. We mentioned Kliegel before. We're going to talk about him again here. 1933, a 1,000-watt ellipsoidal reflector spotlight was introduced. I love in the bottom right corner here how it says that grounding is optional. Just place a G after the product number, and you can have a grounded fixture. I think ETC is still doing that. Is that right? Actually, if you took the factory tour last night, you probably saw one of these. You guys have one of these hanging in the factory as well. So by the late 1930s, both GE and Westinghouse introduced fluorescent lamps. We're not going to spend too much time here because fluorescence we just don't use in the theater, thank God. You know, although there are a number of engineers that doesn't matter what we tell them, we get the drawings back for review and they've stuck fluorescence all over the inside of an auditorium. By 1951, just 12 years after the fluorescent lamps came out, fluorescence outnumbered incandescent lighting in the US. So it was adopted very rapidly, and there was a lot of fluorescent lighting out there. This really makes me kind of wonder, and I don't know that it's happened already. If anybody has the statistic, let me know. But how long before LEDs actually outnumber the other types of lighting that we're using, just generally speaking? 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. This was 12 years for fluorescence. So fluorescence and compact fluorescence continued on. There was a notable source in the theater, a notable, I guess, new tungsten source fixture that was released in 1971 by Altman called the 360Q. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. Raise of hands. Excellent. I love that 6x22 at the bottom. It's a beast. They were so well balanced. I mean, you could just hang them. Yeah. And then some 20 years after this, and there's still a bunch of these around. As a matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago that Altman stopped making this fixture. Some 20 years ago, our beloved ETC Source 4 came out in 1992. And I still can't believe almost a quarter of a century. Now, here's a swag moment. Who can look at this photo of the Source 4 and tell me what's wrong with it for a 1992 Source 4? Yes. There you go. Excellent. What's that? Ah, yes, absolutely. Well, both of you get a swag. Come up afterwards. I'm not going to throw it that far. But yeah, this was a revolutionary thing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Source 4. We all know about it. The lamp reflector design, the interchangeable lens tubes, the rotating barrel, more output, less wattage. It was awesome. It was awesome 23 years ago. It's still a great fixture today. About 5 miles from my house in 1989, my house in Raleigh, a company called Cree delivered the first blue LED to the market that could be used for a lamp source, lighting source. And then soon after that, white LEDs were developed for that purpose. I'm not talking about dashboard lights anymore or little clock radios. These are LEDs for lighting source. And then blowing through LED technology to get us to where we are today in the theater, I'll never forget, so 2006, Fred mentioned yesterday there were a number of LED fixtures starting to show up at LDI in the mid-2000s. And he wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole, and I think that was a very true statement, any of us that saw them. In 2006, I'll never forget when I saw the first Celador display at LDI. Excuse me, that wasn't 2006, but they came together in 2006. And then when I saw the first Celador display at LDI a year or two later, I remember just being completely wowed by it. They had this sort of a accordion paper wall that they put up that took up that provided this beautiful texture, and they had lined the floor with these LED fixtures, and I just thought, wow, this is really going to change everything. And it did. It's interesting, talking about this, I was talking with Al Crawford last night, and he pulled up an image on his phone. I hope it's okay that I share this, Al. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Streaming, I didn't ask. So, streaming a photo of, streaming a live feed of the White House after yesterday's historic Supreme Court decision. And Al let me know, that he got the call, I guess, yesterday morning, ARC3 did, and they were called to light this yesterday. So this is just yesterday, as we're all picnicking at ETC, this is what was going on Pennsylvania Avenue, and they're using Celador fixtures for this purpose. Yeah. So this led to technologies that obviously fed into the Source 4 LED, look at that, I pulled that image off last night. Brand spanking new, Color Source PAR, the Desire series, all of these things led to LED technologies and ETC taking those technologies further. So, it took us thousands of years to learn how to harness electricity and centuries to really develop efficient lamp types to be able to utilize these things. And, technology is moving forward so quickly now that I keep asking myself, what's next? We stood around last night and had a conversation with Jim Uphoff and Rob Raff about, at what point does the momentum, become infinite so that, every day there is such an advancement. If you look at the history and you say, well, we were 105 years in tungsten, and then we go to fluorescent, and these keep getting to be smaller windows. Now LEDs being developed quickly and more quickly. What's next? At what point is there something new every day, and how long does each technology last? Yeah, here's also the GDS fixtures. So in conclusion, I'm going to ask you, what's next? Any one of you sitting out there could have the next big thing, could be floating around in your head. Any one of you. Any one of you could be, a Fred in his garage. Most of you are here because you work in theater venues. You use lighting. We all use electricity. Technology is part of our everyday life. I read an article in the New York Times that stated about 65% of kids in grade school today will work in industries that have not yet been created. So what does that tell us, about technology and how it's moving forward? There are things we haven't thought of yet, and you guys out here could have some of that. So I'm going to conclude with this challenge for you. I want you to take notice of things. Think about Caldy and his goats. Take notice and take action on them. Learn to adapt to technologies, to new technologies, and always keep an open mind to what could be next, what could be just over the horizon. Enjoy life's happy mistakes. Maybe you'll find some good coffee that way. Be creative, be innovative, and together let's go out and all do some great work. I thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Josh.
If I owe you swag, come see me. I've got it.
For those people here that are doing the ETCP certification, please sign up on this over here. Thank you very much.